Right now, as I'm speaking to you, there are millions of pounds of fresh fruits and vegetables rotting in fields across America, while families in food deserts can't find a single decent apple for their kids. This isn't some dystopian movie plot. This is the reality of American agriculture in 2025, and it's about to get a whole lot worse under the Trump administration's latest policies. You want to know what's really happening? Let me break it down for you because the mainstream media isn't telling you the full story. The USDA, that's the Department of Agriculture for those keeping track, just canceled $500 million in food deliveries to food banks. $500 million. That's not a typo, that's not fake news. That's Secretary Brooke Rollins literally pulling the rug out from under hungry Americans while calling it fiscal responsibility. But here's where it gets really twisted. At the same time they're cutting food assistance, farmers across the country are being forced to plow perfectly good crops back into the earth because there's no economic incentive to harvest them. Think about that for a second. We have food rotting in fields while people are going hungry just miles away. If this doesn't make your blood boil, you're not paying attention. The numbers are absolutely staggering, and I want you to really grasp the scale of this crisis. America wastes between 30 to 40% of its entire food supply every single year. That's 133 billion pounds of food, enough to feed every hungry person in this country twice over. Each American throws away about 1 pound of food every single day. Your family of 4, you're tossing $2,500 worth of perfectly good food in the trash annually, while 40 million Americans rely on SNAP benefits just to survive. And get this, the Environmental Protection Agency tells us that the greenhouse gas emissions from all this wasted food are equivalent to more than 42 coal-fired power plants running full blast. We're literally cooking the planet with our food waste, while claiming we can't afford to feed hungry kids. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. Now let's talk about what's really driving this insanity. First, you've got the Trump administration systematically dismantling every program that actually worked. Remember the local food purchase assistance program? That connected small farmers directly to food banks, creating a win-win situation where fresh, healthy food went to people who needed it while supporting local agriculture. Guess what? Gone. Eliminated. Why? Because it had words like equity and climate in the description, and apparently feeding hungry people is now considered woke. Then you have the agricultural distribution system itself, which is basically designed to fail everyone except the biggest corporate players. Small farmers, the ones growing the most nutritious fresh produce, can't compete with the industrial agriculture complex that prioritizes shelf life over nutrition, quantity over quality. When market prices drop or demand shifts, these farmers have two choices: sell at a massive loss or plow the crops back into the ground. Guess which one they're choosing? But here's what really gets me fired up about this whole situation. We're not just talking about economics here. We're talking about a deliberate policy choice to let food rot while people starve. The Central California Food Bank just lost 13 truckloads of groceries worth $850,000. That's 500,000 pounds of food that was supposed to feed families in Fresno County. The CEO, Natalie Kapples, put it perfectly. My food bank can't magically come up with $850,000 and 500,000 pounds of food to backfill that cancellation. Meanwhile, what's the Trump administration's response? They're launching something called the National Farm Security Action Plan that focuses on foreign threats to agriculture while completely ignoring the domestic crisis of food distribution. Secretary Kristi Noem is out there talking about how a country who cannot feed itself cannot take care of itself, which would be inspiring if her own administration wasn't actively making it harder for the country to feed itself. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. They're worried about Chinese infiltration of our farmland, while systematically destroying the programs that actually get American-grown food to American families. It's like being worried about burglars while you're burning down your own house. And let's not pretend this is just about government policy. The entire food distribution system is fundamentally broken, and it's designed to benefit corporations at the expense of everyone else. You know why perfectly good produce gets thrown away? Because it doesn't look perfect enough for American consumers who have been trained to expect every apple to look like it came from a magazine cover. 20% of edible produce gets discarded because it has surface blemishes or grows in unfamiliar shapes. We're literally throwing away nutritious food because it's ugly. The restaurant and grocery industry is just as complicit. They'd rather throw away food than reduce prices or donate it to food banks because of liability concerns and profit margins. The average American family wastes more food than families in developing countries consume in a month, and we act like this is just the cost of prosperity. But here's what really makes this criminal. We know exactly how to fix this problem. Countries like France have mandatory food donation laws that prevent supermarkets from throwing away edible food. Denmark has cut food waste by 25% in just 5 years through public awareness campaigns and policy changes. South Korea charges residents for food waste by weight, creating an immediate economic incentive to waste less. The solutions are sitting right there, proven and tested. We could implement standardized date labeling so people stop throwing away perfectly good food because they're confused by sell-by versus use-by dates. We could expand tax incentives for food donations instead of cutting the programs that facilitate them. We could invest in better storage and distribution infrastructure instead of giving tax breaks to agribusiness corporations. But none of that is happening because it would require admitting that our current system is fundamentally broken. And that's not a conversation the food industry wants to have. They'd rather keep profits high and waste hidden than take responsibility for the human and environmental cost of their business model. The environmental impact alone should be enough to force action. All that wasted food requires an area of agricultural land equal to California and New York combined. It uses enough water and energy to supply more than 50 million homes. And when it rots in landfills, it produces methane emissions that accelerate climate change. We're literally destroying the planet to waste food while people go hungry. This is what happens when you treat food as just another commodity, instead of recognizing it as a basic human right. When profit margins matter more than malnutrition, when corporate shareholders matter more than struggling families, when political posturing matters more than practical solutions. And the most infuriating part? The people making these decisions will never miss a meal. Secretary Rollins will never have to choose between paying rent and buying groceries. The executives at major food corporations will never have to explain to their kids why there's no fresh fruit in the house. The politicians cutting these programs will never stand in line at a food bank, wondering if there will be anything left when they get to the front. This is a crisis of values as much as it's a crisis of policy. We've created a system where it's more profitable to waste food than to feed people, where it's politically easier to blame the poor for being hungry than to fix the distribution system that keeps them that way. But here's the thing, and this is important, we're not powerless here. Every single time you choose to support local farmers, every time you vote for politicians who prioritize food security over corporate profits, every time you demand better from grocery stores and restaurants, you're fighting back against this insane system. Contact your representatives and demand they restore funding for food assistance programs. Support organizations like Feeding America that are trying to bridge the gap between wasted food and hungry families. Shop at farmers markets and support community-supported agriculture. Push for standardized date labeling and food donation policies in your state. And most importantly, stop accepting the lie that we can't afford to feed everyone. The richest country in human history can absolutely afford to make sure no one goes hungry. We just need to choose to do it. The food is there. The distribution networks exist. The only thing missing is the political will to prioritize human needs over corporate profits. And that, my friends, is something we can change if we're willing to fight for it. Because at the end of the day, a society that lets food rot while people starve isn't a society that deserves to call itself civilized. And if we don't fix this crisis now, during what should be an era of abundance, when exactly do we plan to do it? The choice is ours. The time is now. And hungry families across America are counting on us to get this right.